Hey, I'm Sophia. Before we start, go grab a snack and get comfortable for a bit. These stories take their time, and they are told the way I'd tell a friend late at night. I really hope you enjoy them. This story has one update on it and my own opinion at the end. Comment and tell me if you agree. Let's begin. When my family ignored my achievements, I hosted a gala just to show them what they missed. The name cards on the family table were perfectly aligned. Cream stock, black ink, little gold leaf edges that had taken me 3 tries not to smudge, and the 8 chairs behind them sat empty like they were mocking me. I could hear the band warming up in the corner, the soft metallic clink of cutlery, the low buzz of people finding their seats. My dress itched where the tag brushed my spine. My hands smelled like lemons and printer ink and the florist's cold room. I stood behind a curtain near the stage with my phone vibrating in my palm, watching the entrance through a gap in the drape as another group of guests handed over invitations and were greeted with smiles and flutes of champagne. The family table was dead still. Then my screen lit up. Mom. One sentence. Your dad's not feeling well. We'll try to come later.
No apology.
No question. No, are you okay? Just a gentle, familiar dismissal wrapped in plausible-sounding illness. My throat tightened so quickly, I almost gagged. I stared at the message until the letters blurred, then glanced back at the empty chairs like they might fill themselves out of shame. Behind me, the event coordinator whispered, 5 minutes, Mina, and pressed a warm hand to my elbow. Her kindness hit me harder than my mother's text. I nodded like my face still belonged to me. It was a Thursday night in late spring, and this gala wasn't a charity ball in the way rich people throw money at problems to feel clean.
It was my launch.
My first big I exist moment. I'd built a small scholarship and mentorship program for women in trades and tech, girls like me who grew up being told to aim lower, so no one felt threatened. Tonight was supposed to be a fundraiser and a celebration. It was also, if I'm being honest, a dare. A spotlight. A room full of people who respected me. And I'd reserved that table for my family like an idiot because some part of me still believed that if I made it obvious enough, if I printed their names on paper and saved them seats under a chandelier, they'd finally show up and see me. My family's relationship with my achievements has always been slippery. Like they don't deny them outright, they just refuse to hold them with any weight. Growing up, my brother Sam was the story. Sam's football trials.
Sam's grades.
Sam's leadership potential. My parents didn't mean to be cruel in a movie villain way. They just had this quiet belief that boys' success is investment and girls' success is a bonus. When I got top marks in year 12, my dad smiled and said, "Good, now you can be a teacher," like the point of my brain was to be useful and modest. When I got a scholarship in uni, Mum said, "Don't tell your aunties. It'll make them feel bad." When I landed my first job in a male-heavy industry, my parents asked if I was still going to have time to find someone. Every milestone came with a little invisible hand pressing my head back down. The worst was last year. I won an award, nothing celebrity level, but a serious, competitive industry award for a project I'd led that saved a company a lot of money and improved safety conditions. The ceremony was on a Saturday night. I invited my parents weeks in advance. I reminded them. I sent the address. I even offered to pick them up. That morning, Mum called and said, "We can't. Your cousin Hani is doing his engagement lunch, and you know how it looks if we don't go." I remember sitting on my bed in my dress, curling iron still warm on the vanity, and feeling something inside me go quiet. At the awards night, strangers clapped for me, my boss hugged me, I smiled for photos, and my family wasn't there. My dad watched a Facebook video someone posted 2 days later and said, "Nice," as if I'd shown him a new recipe. After that, I stopped trying to make them proud in the ways I'd always been trained to. I stopped dropping hints. I stopped chasing their attention with achievements like treats. I started building something that mattered to me, with or without their applause. And then, somewhere between my anger and my ambition, the idea for the gala formed. I didn't wake up one morning thinking, I'm going to show them. It started as a small plan, set up a mentorship network, create a scholarship fund, host a modest dinner to raise money. But every time I tried to keep it small, someone else in my life treated it like it was worth more. My mentor offered to introduce me to sponsors. My friend Priya volunteered to handle comms. A woman I'd met at a conference offered a venue discount because she liked the mission. Suddenly, it wasn't just a dinner. It was a room, a stage, a chance to turn all the invisible work into something visible. When I told my family about it, I tried to sound casual so I wouldn't scare them off. "I'm hosting an event," I said at Sunday lunch, pushing salad around my plate. "A gala fundraiser for the scholarship." Mom looked up. "Gala? Like fancy?" "Sort of," I said. "It's important. There'll be sponsors and—" Dad snorted. "A scholarship? For what, exactly?" "For women entering trades and tech," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Mentorship. Training grants. Equipment. It's—"
Sam smirked.
"So you're doing woke stuff."
I stared at him.
"It's not woke to help people afford tools." Dad waved a hand like he was swatting a fly. "Just don't embarrass yourself, Mina. Don't act like you're some politician." That line felt familiar in the worst way, like every time I grew, he reached for the same lever. Humility as control. Mom tried to soften it. "Your dad just worries. You know how people talk." I laughed, short. "People have been talking my whole life. I'm tired of living for it." I still sent them invitations. Physical ones. Their names in gold. I called a week later to confirm. Mom said, "We'll see." Dad said, "We'll try." Sam didn't respond. I told myself we'll try was better than no. Now I stood behind the curtain, staring at empty chairs, reading Mom's text again, and feeling the old familiar spiral. Did I ask too much? Should I have kept it small? Am I dramatic for caring? My heart was beating too hard. I could feel the pulse in my ears. Out in the ballroom, my friends moved like comm machines, checking seating, greeting guests, adjusting microphones. Everyone else believed in me so completely, and my own family couldn't even commit to sitting in a chair. The coordinator whispered again, "Mina, you're up soon." I breathed in, and the air smelled like roses and perfume and warm bread. I tried to let the room ground me. A sponsor I admired waved at me from across the hall. My boss smiled like he was proud. Two young women in cheap dresses, students I'd mentored, stood near the back gripping each other's hands, eyes bright and nervous. I focused on them. I focused on why I started this, not the empty chairs. Then, 3 minutes before my speech, the doors opened and I saw my sister Layla walk in with my parents behind her. They weren't dressed for the room. Mom wore a plain cardigan like she'd come from the supermarket. Dad had on the same navy shirt he wears to every nice occasion, not even tucked properly. Layla, who never misses a chance to look perfect, had a sleek dress, heels, hair done. She scanned the room like she was looking for someone important, then spotted the banner with my name, and her face tightened in a way I recognized, annoyance that she wasn't the headline. They walked toward the family table, and Mom's shoulders relaxed like she'd done something heroic just by arriving. Dad looked irritated, like the room was asking too much of him. Layla's eyes went straight to the stage, then to the crowd, then back to me behind the curtain as if I was an employee who'd inconvenienced her. Mom mouthed, "We made it," like she expected me to clap. I didn't. I just stared, feeling something heavy and steady settle in my chest. They didn't come because they wanted to. They came because Layla decided it might look bad if they didn't. Or because someone mentioned sponsors. Or because Mom realized people might ask where they were. Whatever the reason, they were here now, late, underdressed, and somehow still acting like I should be grateful. The music lowered. The lights shifted. The coordinator lifted a finger. "Go." I stepped out onto the stage, and the applause hit me like a wave. Hot lights. Faces. A microphone that smelled faintly of metal. I smiled because my body knew how to perform competence even when my insides were shaking. I scanned the room, and my eyes landed on my family, my parents sitting at the table like they'd wandered into the wrong wedding, Layla leaning back with crossed arms, expression bored. I gripped the sides of the lectern so my hands wouldn't tremble. Good evening, I said, voice steady. Thank you for being here. And that's where I'm going to pause the story midway like you asked, because the next part is where the night split into two versions, the one my family wanted and the one that actually happened. My parents have a talent for being absent even when they're physically in the room. They'll show up late, underdressed, and still somehow make you feel like you're asking for too much, like your success is an inconvenience they're tolerating. My dad's favorite weapon is don't embarrass yourself, which is just a polite way of saying, stay small so I don't have to adjust my view of you. My mom's weapon is people will talk, because she'd rather manage imaginary gossip than protect her real daughter's feelings. Layla isn't evil, but she's been trained to believe the family spotlight is a limited resource, and she fights like an animal when she thinks it's being taken from her. She's the kind of sibling who can't celebrate you without checking whether it lowers her rank. The part that messes with my head is that none of them would say out loud, "We don't care." They'll say they care, then behave like they don't, then act offended when you react. That's how you end up doubting your own reality. And me? I'm not innocent in the sense that yes, a part of me wanted them to sit there and feel small for once. I wanted them to see strangers respecting me the way they never quite managed to. But I also built something real. This wasn't a petty party. It was years of work and frustration turned into a program that helps people. If my family can't hold pride without turning it into competition or shame, that's their limitation, not mine. Update. I didn't expect my original post to blow up the way it did. I thought maybe a handful of people would tell me to go no contact and call my family trash, and that would be that. Instead, a lot of you asked what happened at the gala, and honestly, I needed a day to let it settle because my adrenaline crashed so hard I slept 12 hours like I'd been hit by a truck. So here's what happened. I gave the speech. I started with the mission. Women in trades and tech, why mentorship matters, why small financial barriers turn into lifelong detours. I told a story about being 19 and borrowing safety boots because I couldn't afford the right gear. I watched faces in the crowd soften. People nodded. A few laughed at the right moments. It felt good. Not ego good. Relief good. Like speaking the truth without shrinking. Then the award started. We had 2 scholarship recipients chosen for the first round. 2 young women came up on stage, one doing electrical, one doing mechanical engineering, and I handed them certificates and grants. The crowd stood and clapped. Sponsors shook their hands. My boss wiped his eyes. I know, dramatic, but he's a softie. It was one of those moments where you can feel a room agree that something matters. My family sat through it like they were watching someone else's presentation at a school assembly. Mum clapped politely, but her eyes kept darting around as if she was checking who was watching her clap. Dad kept looking at his phone, not fully hiding it. Layla leaned toward Mum at one point and whispered something that made Mum's mouth tighten. I didn't hear what she said, but I recognized the posture. Layla narrating how ridiculous this all is so she doesn't have to feel left out. After the formal program, people mingled. Sponsors came up to me. A woman from a big company asked about partnership. A journalist asked for a quote. I was surrounded in a way that felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. My family hovered near the table, awkward and restless. Then Mum approached me with Layla right behind her like a shadow. Mum smiled too wide.
Mina.
That was lovely. Thank you, I said, still holding a champagne flute I hadn't touched. Layla tilted her head. So, this is what you've been busy with?
Iserte her.
Yes, I said. I told you. She shrugged. You didn't really explain it. I did, I said, and my voice stayed calm, but my chest tightened. You just didn't listen. Dad joined them, eyes scanning the room. So, he said, like we were at a barbecue. How much money did you raise? The question wasn't evil on its own, but the tone was. Like numbers were the only language he respected. Like my work only mattered if it looked impressive on paper. Enough to fund the next round, I said. Dad nodded, satisfied, like he'd just checked a box. Then he did something that made my stomach drop. He turned to a sponsor standing near us and stuck out his hand. I'm Mina's father, he said, voice suddenly confident. We're very proud. I watched the sponsor smile politely, but I felt this hot sting behind my eyes. Proud? Where was that pride when I was paying my own way through internships, when I begged them to attend my award night, when I sat alone at ceremonies while they went to cousins' lunches? Layla stepped forward and laughed lightly. We always knew Mina would do something like this, she said, as if she hadn't mocked me for trying to stand out my entire life. Something in me went very still. I didn't explode. I didn't make a speech. I just said calmly, "No, you didn't." Layla blinked. "Excuse me?" "You didn't," I repeated, keeping my voice low. "You told me not to embarrass myself. You told me to keep it small. You didn't attend my award last year. You didn't ask a single question until you walked into this room." Mum's face went pale.
Mina.
Dad's expression hardened. "Don't start," he hissed. But it was already started. Not by me. By years of them treating my life like background noise. I looked at my mum. "You can't show up late and pretend you were part of it," I said. "Not in front of people." Mum's eyes filled. Of course. Tears. The family's favorite exit route. Layla crossed her arms. "You're being so dramatic," she snapped, and her voice rose enough that a couple of nearby guests glanced over. I leaned in slightly, still calm. "I'm not being dramatic," I said. "I'm being accurate." Dad stepped closer, jaw tight. "We came, didn't we?" "Yes," I said. "And you're acting like that earns you credit." His face flushed. "You're ungrateful." That word, ungrateful, hit me like a slap because it's the word families use when they want you to shut up and accept crumbs. I felt my heart banging, but my voice stayed steady. "I'm grateful to the people who showed up when it mattered," I said, and I gestured lightly toward my friends, my team, the students. "I'm not going to pretend you supported me just because you're standing near me now." Mum started crying harder. Layla rolled her eyes. Dad muttered something in Arabic under his breath that I won't repeat here, but it wasn't kind. And then, because life loves timing, a photographer came over and asked, "Quick family photo with the founder?" Like it was normal. Mum looked relieved, like the universe had offered an escape. Layla straightened, ready to smile. Dad wiped his face and nodded like a king granting permission. I smiled politely at the photographer and said, "No, thank you." All three of them froze. The photographer looked confused. "Oh, okay. It's fine," I said, still polite. "Just photos with the team tonight." Layla's face tightened with anger. Mum looked wounded. Dad looked like he'd been publicly slapped. They left early. Mum texted me from the car. "I can't believe you humiliated us." Dad didn't text. Layla posted a vague story later about people who let success go to their head, which a cousin then screenshot and sent to me with a laughing emoji. Not in my story, but in real life, yes. The next day, the calls started. Aunties. Uncles. People who hadn't asked me how I was in months suddenly had opinions about my attitude. My mum cried to my grandma. My dad told Sam I was disrespectful. Layla told everyone I was jealous of her, which is hilarious because jealous of what, exactly? Here's the part that surprised me. I didn't collapse into guilt.
I felt sad, yes.
I felt grief for the family. I wish I had. But I didn't feel wrong. Because I saw it clearly now. They didn't want to celebrate me. They wanted to be associated with me. They wanted the photo, the bragging rights, the ability to say our daughter without doing the work of actually being there. And for the first time in my life, I didn't make it easy. I told my mum I needed space. I told my dad I would not discuss it if he was going to insult me. I blocked Layla for a week because I couldn't handle her commentary. Then I went back to work on the scholarship because the next round of applications opened and real life doesn't pause for family drama. Now I'm sitting here the week after the gala, still tired, still processing, but also weirdly lighter. Like, I finally stopped performing for them. Okay, now I'll finish the story. 2 weeks after the gala, my dad asked to meet me for coffee. He picked a cafe near my childhood house, like location could drag me back into old roles. He arrived first, sitting rigid with his hands clasped like he was waiting for a verdict. Mum wasn't there. Layla wasn't there. Just him. That alone felt like a shift. He didn't apologize immediately. Of course he didn't. He started with, "You embarrassed your mother." I sipped my coffee slowly. "You embarrassed me for years," I said. His jaw clenched. "We are family. You don't do that in public." I looked him straight in the eye. "Then don't do it in private," I said. "Support me when it's quiet. Don't show up only when people are watching." He stared at the table. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he said, smaller, "I didn't know it mattered so much." The sentence was clumsy, but it was the closest thing to honesty I'd heard from him in a long time. I exhaled. "It mattered," I said. "And it still does. But I'm not begging anymore." He nodded once, like he was swallowing something. "Your mother, she doesn't understand why you're so hard." I almost laughed. "I'm not hard," I said. "I'm done being flexible." We talked for an hour. It wasn't a movie reconciliation. He didn't cry. I didn't forgive everything. But I told him clearly what the boundary was. If they want a relationship with me, they show up consistently, not performatively. They don't take credit for my work. They don't call me ungrateful when I tell the truth. He didn't love hearing it, but he heard it. After that, my mom came around slowly. She didn't apologize properly, but she did something new. She asked questions. Real ones. How do the girls apply? How do you choose recipients? Do you need help with food next time? It wasn't perfect, but it was effort, and effort is the only apology that matters to me now. Layla is still Layla. She hasn't apologized. She's still salty that I had a night where the room wasn't arranged around her. Maybe she'll grow up. Maybe she won't. I'm not holding my breath. The biggest change wasn't them, though. It was me. I stopped saving seats for people who treat me like an afterthought. Next year we're hosting the gala again. Bigger, better, more scholarships. I've already decided. No family table. If my parents come, they can RSVP like everyone else. If Layla comes, she can sit wherever there's space. My work is not a stage for their image management. It's a mission. And I'm finally treating it that way. My dad isn't a monster, but he is dangerously comfortable with a version of fatherhood where he gets authority without emotional labor. He wants the respect of being the father without doing the consistent showing up that earns that respect. His "don't embarrass yourself" line is basically him trying to keep me within the limits he can understand, small enough that he never has to examine how often he minimized me. My mom is softer, but softness can still be selfish. Her obsession with what people will say is a way of outsourcing her parenting to imaginary critics. She would rather manage appearances than face the discomfort of admitting she failed me in small, repeated ways. Layla is the most openly irritating because she's the sibling who treats attention like currency. She doesn't know how to celebrate without competing, and she doesn't know how to compete without belittling. The eye rolls, the dramatic comments, the sudden attempt to claim credit. Those aren't accidents. That's entitlement wearing perfume. The funny part is that my family isn't even unique. A lot of families love you as long as your success stays quiet and convenient. The moment it demands time, attention, or a shift in family hierarchy, they act like you've committed a social crime. The gala didn't magically fix my family, but it did something more useful. It exposed the difference between people who are proud of you and people who want to be associated with you. And that's the real lesson. If someone only shows up when there's a camera, they don't love you. They love the story they can tell about you. I don't think my family deserves cruelty. I think they deserve boundaries, so firm they can't wiggle around them with guilt and tears. The most satisfying revenge wasn't watching them squirm at my event. It was realizing I don't need their recognition to keep building. I can grieve them and outgrow them at the same time. And if they want a place in my life now, they're going to have to earn it the way everyone else does, by showing up on time, listening when I speak, and treating my achievements like they're real even when no one else is watching.